Asia-Pacific markets ended mostly higher this morning on easing trade tensions between the US and China, but it looks like that momentum is fading. In Japan, markets were muted with benchmark Nikkei 225 losing 0.14%. However, in China, Hong Kong and the stocks ended slightly higher, led by financial shares. US futures are flat with the S&P 500 slightly up at 0.06%, while Nasdaq 100 futures is 0.1% higher. Dow Jones Industrial Average were flat, and of course this after S&P and Nasdaq closed higher last night. However, Dow Jones finished in the red, dragged by United Health Group, which announced the departure of its CEO. That stock sliding 20%. And better than expected inflation numbers in the US also supported broadly positive sentiments on Wall Street. The all-share index up 0.1% at 92,900. The rand is firmer against the US dollar at 18,022, slipping against the euro at 20.49 and 24.31 to the pound. Gold is trading at $3,233 an ounce, platinum at $988 an ounce, and Brent crude at $65.85 per barrel. Well, now we are joined by Zwalakhe Mnguni. He's our market analyst. He's with Benguela Fund Managers. Thank you very much for your time, Zwalakhe.
Yes, hi.
It looks like this market is really trying to find direction. I mean, we've seen with the closing on Wall Street, it was a little bit of a mixed picture. The JSE this morning opened and it just accelerated to a record high, but it looks like we are starting to lose some of those gains that we had seen.
Yeah, look, I think we had a catalyst in a form of the China-US 90-day truce on the tariffs. I think that has given the market some hope that this hindrance could be taken away, and essentially we could focus back on the fundamentals. So that we did see a bit of a relief rally yesterday in some of the stocks, but today I think people are taking some profit, but certainly not a bad outcome, I mean, compared to how far we've gone from where we were probably a month ago.
Yeah, do you think that perhaps we may see this market finding its direction? Perhaps it's looking for some news that could actually bring more positive sentiment?
Yeah, I think the news globally, I think the tariff news would probably be very positive if they can maybe cut the tariffs or come to a deal where there are no tariffs. That'd be very good for global markets. On the SA side, I think that the story around Eskom possibly going back into load shedding was a major negative for markets, and I think the overall economic management, I think, is a big focus for markets at the moment. So I'm hoping that we can see an improvement in that, so that we can see continued momentum in the SA market. But globally, I think the cuts are laid, and I think we could see momentum continue to run there.
Let's look at the local unit. We have seen it stabilizing at the current levels around 1820 or so, and it looks like it's been quite firm around that, and there hasn't been much movement. Is it a story of a weaker US dollar, or the fundamentals in South Africa are favorable to this local currency?
Look, there's probably two things. On one side, I think we've seen there has been a steady buying of the fixed income assets, so the bonds, the SA bonds, which are very attractive compared to many global markets. I think that has been a driver of inflows. And on the other side, I think the dollar has kind of weakened to some extent. And that has helped the rand during this time. So I think around 1820, 1825 probably will settle at this until we see where the market is going from here.
Yeah, I have to talk about the inflation numbers that came out overnight yesterday in the US. We've seen that it was actually looking much better than expected. So it looks like, of course, the inflation is no longer much of a concern. The Fed can actually focus on its other mandate.
Yeah, I think that there is a bit of a spoof in those numbers, because what happened is guys rushed to place their orders to buy inventories ahead of the tariffs, and I think the tariffs have started kicking in. I think on the 1st of April. That number is not yet in the full inflation number, so it's likely that we might see the Fed pausing until June, until they can see that there is clarity that inflation hasn't had any or the tariffs haven't had any lasting effect on the inflation. But the direction is right, so they should be able to act in June at the latest.
Yeah, President Trump in the Middle East currently announcing, they say, about $1 trillion deals, but there's not much information if indeed they've managed to seal that value, and others are saying actually it's the deal. The deal is much less. It's lesser than what had been indicated.
Look, I think what I saw was that Saudi Arabia was the main part. I think it was about $600 billion that they committed to invest. But again, it's not an immediate investment. It's investment over time. I saw that they were putting money into all sectors predominantly. So the data centers, artificial intelligence, they were looking to put close to 100 billion in that sector. But the ultimate thing is, they are trying to kind of cut deals to relieve the pressure that's been coming through from companies redirecting their investment elsewhere or as a result of the tariffs. So I do think that he's trying hard, and there may be some results, but I don't know if he'll offset the whole impact of his tariffs that he announced on Liberation Day.
Yeah, as we conclude, we have a number of data coming up in the next weeks or so. Of course, even the budget 3.0 on the horizon. So those are some of the perhaps risks that could move this local market either way.
I think the big question around the budget 3.0 is where they getting the money from. I mean, I think there was a deficit of about 75 billion that they needed to plug. Where are they getting it from, and how are they going to make up for it? So if they don't come out with some form of cost reduction, I think the market won't believe the story. But if they do come up with a working structure, I think it should be able to assist the rand. It should be able to assist with some foreigners coming to invest in the country again.
Thank you very much, Zwelakhe Mnguni. He's with the Benguela Global Fund Manager, for your time. So, well, On Point continues with much business and current affairs news after the break.